in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, hello. This, the final week of July 2026. Yeah, summer flying by. Not as fast. Yeah, it's going relatively fast, but I'm savoring it at the same time. I can't say I'm not making the most of it. I hope you are. Happy birthday to my beloved mother, Veronica Kelly, today, July 27th. Back in 1950, whatever, she was born in Brooklyn to her proud parents, John and Helen. And she was one of five children. And she did a great job with me and with my brother, and of course for my dad. I don't think my dad would have become the police commissioner had he not been married to Veronica. And she had an amazing career herself. She was a nurse. She became a very successful salesperson for surgical supplies. It's a big business, you may know. And what else? Oh, she was in the Coast Guard. She used to go off on active duty and shoot guns and stuff like that. It was pretty wild. My mom is the greatest. Happy birthday. And she had a lot of fun hanging around with the grandkids this weekend, my little babies, which has made her very, very happy, and my dad as well. All right. Something that kind of does not make him happy, and I think should really, all New Yorkers, to see our NYPD. This has been years coming together, and now it's like it's at a point where they carry no legitimacy in the eyes of so many, in the eyes of lawless New Yorkers who wanted to be lawless. And they're not just, bands of radical kids and gangs and that kind of thing. It's politicians, right? They brought us to this moment. I don't know if you saw it over the weekend, to see cops get doused with water. It's not the first time I've seen that, but it's kind of heartbreaking. Even on a hot day, you don't do that. You don't do that to people. And the taunting of police officers, the taunting, the yelling, the screaming, the spitting. They shoot their mouths off. They get in their face. They push back. And then whoa, when police push back, oh, my God, I got you on video. I got you on the video. Well, it's law enforcement. Law enforcement. Force. There's force in there. And the cops are allowed to exhibit and display force. All right? It's the statute. It's part of it. I mean, that is part of their job. They are actually allowed to push you. Forget what the CCRB and Mamdani and these crazy regulations from City Hall, rules and regulations. It's in the law that they are allowed to use force. But now everything they do is being second-guessed. Oh, gosh. Everything they do is monitored, picked apart. Imagine being at your job and having a camera on all day long, watching you do your job. Nobody could function like that. But cops already have a difficult job, and they're supposed to have all this stuff. Everybody's trying to get them, trip them up. We got 5 district attorneys. We got the CCRB. We got a crazy city council. We got a mayor who hates cops. Hey, how about Sid Rosenberg this weekend, huh? I admire the spirit to a point. I think Sid, there's some, finally I'm seeing some distance, some, what do they call it? A gap, some white space between Sid and me on the, certainly on the Iran situation. But do me a favor, here are NYPD cops being harassed, and then they start pushing back, as they should, and the people get all crazy. Cut 17, please. Cut 17.
Why you pushing her? Why the you pushing her? Don't be pushing nobody. Why you pushing her? I got that on video. What's your number? Don't push her. The is wrong with you? No, he just pushed her. And I got that on video. Don't you push her. Go, son. Yep.
Go cops.
Oh my God! Get off of her! Get off of her! What the Turn it back up.
I'm sorry. Every time the cops use force, it's not Rodney King. Okay, that was totally legitimate. I've seen this all weekend long. Some people say I'm supposed to be outraged by it. How dare these cops? And I'm like, I don't see a damn thing wrong with what the cops did. I don't see a thing wrong with what the cops did in Madison, Wisconsin. Did you see that? I have seen people who get stabbed and they don't even know they're stabbed. They get punched. They get punched and they get stabbed and they think they're punched. And then they walk around and then they bleed out and then they die. You got a guy with a knife. I don't care how many guys are around him. Imagine if he severed your wrist, your artery in your arm. A guy on the ground with a knife is a guy with a deadly weapon on the ground. Would you, he's on the ground, he has a gun? No, you shoot the freaking guy. It was a totally justified use of force. What isn't justified are the crazy Black Lives Matter, which in Madison, Wisconsin is basically a bunch of white liberals from the University of Wisconsin. They're joining arms, they're linking arms and trying to cut off people from driving through the intersection. I mean, it's like vigilante martial law. All these maniacs and they're trying to get white people to apologize for being white. And of course, the white people are. Right. It's such a crazy liberal town up there. I don't think the police have been robust. Is that the word? Robust enough in pushing back. We do have woke police departments. The cops basically are not woke, but this is the chief of the police department. This one's in Asheville, North Carolina. There's all kinds of, basically in any urban center in America, you're going to have crime. Okay. Red states, blue cities. Yeah, go figure. All the crime is in the blue cities. They try to say it's a red state problem because it happened in North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. There's serious crime downtown. Gang shooting, gang violence. Listen to how this chief of police, who's a woman, by the way, and I don't think any woman should be the chief of police. Sorry, it doesn't work, right? To be a chief of police, you have to know what it's like to arrest people. And even women in the police department don't get to arrest that many people. Now, compared to the guys, not really. They're in a bad spot. You need upper body strength, and women basically lack upper body strength. As a rule, there are always exceptions to the rule, but as a rule, they're not strong enough to do the job. Cops or in the military. Now, I love cops. I love female cops, too. They got spunk. They got swagger. But there are certain jobs that they should not be front and center on. All right, so this is what happens, all right? There's the woke police chief. It was clearly an episode of gang violence. And listen to her bend over backwards, how she doesn't want to call a mass shooting between two groups of people gangs. Okay, I don't know why. Cut 16, please. Cut 16.
Does the Asheville Police Department believe this is two families that are rivaling against each other here, or is it gang violence?
This is a group of individuals who know one another.
But would you categorize that as gang violence, or would it be just two guys that got in a fight over a bar or something like that?
These are groups, again, that are committing acts of violence against one another.
Like crime groups?
I would say these are two groups of individuals. I would say there are, ties to them knowing each other and committing ongoing retaliatory acts against one another.
Groups of individuals who know one each other. They all happen to be between the ages of 14 and 19. They all happen to be... It's gang violence, babe. It's gang violence. If you got to tiptoe around the problem, how in the hell are you going to fix the problem, right? You can't. Woke language. Woke. All right. So, Mamdani, it seems like, I hate that term, but he's getting out over his skis a little bit too far. It's hard to see him going 4 years with all this stuff, all this crazy stuff he's saying and antagonizing people and being, I do believe, in the language and culture of the moment, he's signaling anti-Semitism. He is signaling anti-Semitism. I know he's a terrorist sympathizer and a jihadist sympathizer. I don't go so far as to say he's a terrorist, though, all right? If I were in a debate with somebody, I don't think I could make that case. I wouldn't be able to make that case. I need to back up myself with facts. I can point out to all kinds of dog whistles and code words and that kind of thing that he's a sympathizer. But Sid went a little bit farther on the Fox and Friends show. Let's see here. Cut 3, please. Cut 3. Sid.
Trying to talk to Mayor Mamdani is like trying to talk to the IRGC, okay? This guy is a terrorist. That's the bottom line. I'll say it. You don't want to say it. I'll say it. He's a terrorist. He's a jihadist. He hates the Jewish people. He hates America. He hates the Italian people. He hates the Irish people. He hates the German people. Unless you're Muslim, Mayor Mamdani has no use for you. He is a horrible person and maybe has perpetrated the worst American and Jewish hate in the history of this country. Those two people stabbed the other day in the Upper Side of New York City. That blood is on his hands. That blood is on your hands, Mayor Mamdani. We got to find a way to get this guy out of here. Maybe Dr. Naomi Wolf is right. Maybe that election wasn't what it looked like on paper. Maybe he really didn't win. But either way, this guy is the worst thing to happen to New York politics, maybe in the history of our state. He's a lowlife.
I mean, I think you may be a bit over your skis in labeling him a terrorist, and you're probably going to get flagged for that.
Why? Let me ask you this.
Because New Yorkers elected this guy.
Who cares?
They knew everything about him before. Like, this is predictable. You talked about predictability. This is a predictable...
Griff, let me ask you this. The Hamas guys that are in Qatar right now, they've never put on an explosive vest. They've never shot anybody. Would you consider those guys terrorists? Because I would. Okay, so his ideologies are in line with the terrorists. Mahmoud Khalil is a campus terrorist. You don't have to kill somebody to be a terrorist. You have to share the ideology. That's what this guy is. He's no better than the person who actually goes and shoots somebody because he respects that person. He likes that person. That makes him one of them.
Okay. Again, I like the spirit where Sid is coming from. I do think the guy is a lowlife. I'm not going to go so far as to call him a terrorist. Because I do think it's about pulling the trigger. All right. And there are people I don't want to call that disagree with me and disagree with Sid on Israel. All right. And there are people who call us terrorists all the time. I just, it's not. And I think that Sid, you don't want to go around bragging that Fox had to apologize for you twice. I know you love going on that program, Fox and Friends, and you're fantastic on it. All right. But you don't want to rub it in their face that they had to apologize for you twice. But and the other thing, look, it's a complicated world. Qatar is a friend of ours, all right? The government, the emir, blend all this stuff together, all right? We have lowlifes in this country. We have good people in this country. We have a government. Over there, people blend all of it together. America is this. America is that. It's a bit more complex. I do believe. Now, let's try this. And this is where I'm also at odds with Sid. Certainly not in a personal way. I love the guy, and I love his spirit. But as we pursue getting rid of nuclear weapons in Iran, there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And I think that's a decent conversation to have. But this might be just a little bit too far. Where are we here? Cut 4. Sid on Fox and Friends.
It is inevitable that President Trump is going to have to do what he doesn't want to do, which is go in there with this massive all-out attack. There's no other way to stop this. There's no other way to win this war. So, again, he's trying to do the best he can. He's a very nice man. I love President Trump. He doesn't want people to die. He really doesn't. Okay, he's a nice man. But there's no other way to end this. Once you start this, Midnight Hammer was great. Epic Fury was great. Once you start this, there needs to be a finish. And the only finish is complete surrender by the Iranians. I hate to say it, but complete annihilation.
Well, we talked last time about this. And by the way, I agree. I love President Trump. I love his heart, I think, is really for peace. And I love that even now, this past week, he's still talking about peace and wanting to find and leaving that door open for negotiations. You say the only end is annihilation. Now, what if winning this war requires boots on the ground? I asked you that last time. That's not very popular with the American people. What is your response to that?
It's not popular with me either. Look, I'm not a parent of an Army person, a Marine person, so I'm very sensitive to that. Trust me. But look, we have the Army, we have the Marines for a reason. They're not there to shake your hand at the airport, Rachel, okay? They're there for a reason. Last I checked, we don't have a draft in this country. So these courageous men and women know exactly what they're signing up for. This is war. We don't want to see anybody die, but this is war. A war that started 47 years ago that they started. So, yes, I know the moral ground is to say, I don't want our kids to die. I feel the same way. But we got to win. Now, we can win maybe without putting boots on the ground. Maybe we can. I don't know. I'm not Jack Keane. I don't have that type of information. If we can do that, great. But if at some point it requires putting some boots on the ground to win this war, that's why they signed up. To fight for this country, to fight for President Trump, and to rid the world of evil animals like the Iranian regime.
Can I just ask, what does victory look like to you? Are you serious? You really want just until they're annihilated and there's a regime change? Is that final for you?
That's it. I mean, look, I want to get the dust. I want to open the strait. All that's important. But if you leave these animals in power, you are destined. Look, what is the definition of insanity? Do the same thing over and over and again, expect different results. If you leave the IRGC in power, we're going to have the same issues in 5 years, in 10 years, when the great President Trump, excuse me, is gone.
All right, Sid. Good job. The annihilation part, though, when people start talking about annihilation, to some people that means nuclear bombs all over the place and annihilating every single Iranian who lives, right? No, that's not me. That's kind of a genocide type thing. Even if we have the power, I'm not for it. I am not for that. So, interesting, very interesting. But Sid, don't look, what do I care? It's kind of fun pressing the buttons of Fox News, right? Because too often they're fair weather friends. Good for you. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly.
Let's go, Brandon.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's a bunch of women fighting women at the Dominican Day Parade. Man, they're going at it. They're going at it hard. There is an atmosphere of lawlessness and chaos that we haven't had since when? You know, even in the 1970s, my understanding was, and even my dim memory from that period, I was just a little kid and I lived on Long Island for most of it, it wasn't this charged, right? Because the drug of choice back then was heroin, and heroin is a bit of a, a depressant, and it doesn't make people want to go out and fight like crazy. You know, whereas some of the other newer drugs, you know, certainly crack and other things are more of a stimulant-based drug. But look, this is sad to see, and we know it doesn't have to be like this. We're joined by John D. Macari, founder and host of New York's Finest, the Unfiltered podcast. It is fantastic stuff. If you want to find out what the hell's going on in the NYPD for real, go to thefinestunfiltered.com. John D. Macari Jr., welcome back, sir. It is very, you know, this is all man-made, I feel like, John. You know, it doesn't have to be this way.
Well, I would say it's Democrat-made, and particularly New York Democrat-made. This is almost 13 years now of one-party Democratic rule across New York State and across New York City. And the result of that you're seeing on New York City streets, the chaos that's unfolding at all of these things. And again, crime isn't as high as it was in the 70s, but the lack of respect for police and the lack of humanity, I believe, has never been higher. And that is a direct result of all of they call it criminal justice reform, but what I call it is anti-police, pro-criminal legislation that's been put in place, and it's emboldened literally all of the stuff that's going on in New York City streets.
And, you know, when you talk the numbers, you know, what do the numbers say about crime? I don't think there's any correlation between crime that's happening and the numbers that are available, or the numbers at the NYPD and the mayor's site, because we know that crimes aren't being reported. We know that cops have been discouraged from getting out of their radio cars and the rest, you know, or breaking up a fight and then not doing the paperwork because, well, they know how this goes. So I think there's a huge gap between what's happening and what's actually being reflected in the papers. In the papers, by you mean NYPD papers, forms, that kind of thing. What are you hearing?
I mean, look, the Bronx Dominican Day Parade was an absolute disaster. All the cops there were furious. It was calls for help all over the place, to the point that there were no other backup units because it was understaffed and mismanaged. I'm sure there were dozens and dozens of crimes that occurred on that parade route that will not be reported, and yet you'll be told that it was a safe parade overall. It was safe. mostly peaceful. And then you look at the day prior, and the Bronx was an absolute disaster. We had a 12-year-old boy murdered, completely innocent kid riding his bike, a son of a former retired NYPD sergeant, detective sergeant. The kid did nothing wrong, and yet we're told crime's down at the Bronx. It's at historic lows. Well, maybe if you're talking major shootings and murders, but tell that to the people that are suffering under all these policies. And today, the mayor and the police commissioner, they want everyone to believe that it's only murders and shootings that affect your life. And what we see is that that's not the case. All of the crimes matter. All of the quality of life crimes that we're no longer enforcing matter. They affect public safety. And again, when you look at the crime numbers, I mean, what consistently happens is we celebrate unaudited crime numbers in New York City. They tell you crime's down. As soon as they audit those numbers to random sampling audits, crime's always up. And it happens every month over month, and it's been happening for years now.
Listen to this little skirmish up in the Bronx, I believe. Just they're pushing. They're getting in the faces of cops, and then the cops push back. Cut 17, if you don't mind.
Why you pushing her? Why the you pushing her? Don't be pushing nobody. Why you pushing her? I got that on video. What's your number? Don't push her. What the is wrong with you? No, he just pushed her.
Oh my God, she just pushed her. He pushed her. All right. Now I know you can't see that, but basically you got pushing. It seems like some people in the community, a lot of politicians and a lot of people in the media don't understand that law enforcement force. It is acceptable for police to use force, and short of deadly force as well. I mean, pushing, given the situation, is allowed. Right, John?
What the Democratic politicians across New York State.
Well, let me ask you that one thing. Seriously, you are allowed to put, if somebody is getting and won't move back, you are allowed to push them. Forget about Mondami. Forget about the code says you are allowed to push back.
We're trained that if people aren't clearing the roadways or the streets, or you're giving them a lawful order, that absolutely you can push somebody back. That is part of our training. That's what you should expect from the police, or else people would take over the roadways. You wouldn't be able to drive, or they would take over sidewalks. You wouldn't be able to walk, in scenarios like that. So yeah, absolutely. That there's absolutely nothing wrong. It's not like the cops walking up to her and pushing her for no reason. He asked them to move out of a street so cars could pass. I mean, it's not hard,
Body cameras, have they made the job easier, better, harder? What's your take on body cams?
It depends, because we've seen a lot of incidents on body camera that in my take prove the innocence of officers, and I think they help a lot in like major events on some allegations. But on the other end of it, when you look at New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, how they view body camera, they look at it as ESPN, and they try to find things wrong with every scenario in these dynamic scenarios and never take the police officer's perspective into account. So you see cops are issued a lot of discipline unnecessarily because of body cameras, but in the larger aspects and the larger complaints, like with the shootings and things like that, they do help to exonerate cops, as long as it's not politically charged, because then if that's the case, then the truth doesn't matter and the cops are all bad guys.
Anti-Semitism is something, honestly, I didn't think that much about, right? I thought we beat it. I mean, I was very naive and silly. The Holocaust, oh my God, never again, never again, never again. It was always there. And I do believe Mamdami's victory has let it all come spilling out. And that Upper West Side stabbing and the crazy jihadist who did it. And here's Mamdami on all of, whether or not he's responsible for all this stuff. Listen to this. Cut 2, please. Cut 2.
What do you say to Jewish New Yorkers who feel you're fueling anti-Semitism?
I would say first and foremost is there's no tolerance for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out anti-Semitism from across the 5 boroughs, and that's because this is a city that is one that has no room for hate or bigotry of any kind. And when we make criticisms of a nation state or policies, we have to remember that those are criticisms of exactly that. Never of a people, never of a faith.
It's always kind of controlled and measured and reactive when he's talking about anti-Semitism, but he really gets out in front, you know what I mean, in criticizing Israel, and going places where mayors just shouldn't be going. I mean, that stuff that we just heard, that's like a really hard thing to get a hold of, right? Even if you're a good mayor, even if you're a good commissioner, even in the best of times, that stuff is hard, right, John?
Absolutely. I mean, look, here's the thing that I always say about hate crimes. If you allow crime to happen on New York City streets and you allow people to act as opportunists and feel emboldened to assault people, rob people for whatever reason they're doing it, whether it's because they hate you because of the way you look, the color of your skin, your religion, we're allowing people to feel free that they can get out there and assault them. And many of these crimes, when you look at them, they're crimes of opportunity. Why are they crimes of opportunity? Because you have an understaffed police force. You have a police force that's been emasculated by democratic legislation for the last 12 years, and you have criminals that are emboldened. So when you have crime rising, when you allow people to do what they want and act how they want, then, yeah, you're going to get a lot more hate crimes. So I personally believe in the last 12 years we haven't taken any type of hate crime seriously because we don't take crime seriously at all.
John Macari, former cop. Hey, by the way, Mandami doesn't either. I mean, look, he's messing around with grocery stores. You see that? The grocery store finally open. What was your first arrest? You remember the first time you made a collar? Isn't that what cops call it, a collar? What was your first one?
I mean, my first one, I was a rookie, and it was somebody drove drunk into somebody's home. So that was my first arrest, right out of the police academy. And that was the first thing I was there. And New York City took that arrest very seriously, but that was my first official arrest, was a DWI arrest. Wow.
Yeah, the stories you guys have, amazing. And if you want to hear more of it and what's going on with the NYPD right now, John, what's the best way to get your podcast?
Yeah, we're on YouTube at The Finest Unfiltered. We just hit over, I think, 320,000 subscribers, and we appreciate you plugging the show, Greg, and it's always a pleasure to join you.
All right, John, thank you very, very much. Your perspective is invaluable. We'll talk to you in a little bit. The grocery store is open right now. There are a lot of things that a mayor can do, should do, right, has the power to do. Being in the grocery business ain't one of them, and it's a pathetic waste of time and an very expensive waste of time. Highlights from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, or as we should call it, the Propaganda Awards. Really, they are in love with themselves. President Trump took it all in good spirit, maybe a little bit too good. I think he should have laid into them a little bit harder. We'll be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
John Catsimatidis just made three excellent points, and I've become so almost immune to the substandard crap we have laying around our country and our city, especially when it comes to infrastructure. I mean, you get off you go to the airport in Hong Kong. You're going to want to stay there. You'd go to the Hong Kong airport just for fun, just to hang around. All right. It is probably the most awe-inspiring place. It is, we used to go to the mall, and then the mall became kind of crummy, and then they upgraded the mall. And then they had the Mall of the Americas. What's another? I mean, it's like Disneyland. It's like a modern Disneyland refurbished. It is. You come into LaGuardia. Now, I know LaGuardia kind of fixed things up, but it's a little bit mediocre. It really is mediocre. It's not all that. It's cleaner than it used to be. They've got these, those things that help you get, what do they call them? They're not elevators. They're not escalators. Those walkway tramways. They got like two of them in the whole place. They're like 10 feet. They have those silly restaurants, bookstores. It's normal. Kennedy is a dump. Why are our roads in New York City and the surrounding areas so screwed up? Excuse me. I used to, wow. Pardon me. You know what it is? It's the air conditioning. I love air conditioning. I insist on keeping the fan on. And I insist on keeping it like 67 degrees. I love it. I love sleeping like that. I got it really cold and a fan. My wife, fortunately, doesn't mind. We're on the same page in terms of climate control in the house. The roads are all fouled up. And if you go to Europe, I was in Europe, when was that? A year ago, and I went probably 10 years before that. Why are all the roads so smooth over there? And this is a country that we bomb the hell out of, right? Germany. We bomb the hell out of Germany. Every single road there is better than any road we have in America. Why is that? I mean, is it because they had to make them all brand new? These things are newer than World War II. There's so many practical things for politicians to be engaged in, but it's too much work, and there's too much accountability. We can look to the road and say, hey, you promised to fix that thing, and it's still broken. So they don't even talk about it anymore. The only person who does President Trump. High-speed rail. Look, I don't particularly, it's not a passion project, but if you go to China, if you go to Japan has had high-speed. Their trains from 60 years ago, the bullet train is about 60 years old, goes 10 times faster than any of our trains. Now, what is up with that? Are we a superpower or what? How did this happen? Now, part of it is we're not about the collective. We're about the individual, right? We have super duper wealth and rich guys, and that's great, and they hire other people, right? We have a survivalist mentality here. I think it comes from our ancestors, right, who came to the new world, and there wasn't a great big safety net like they had in the old world. It's a little bit tougher here, almost, I don't want to say by design, but it's kind of understood. It's just a little bit tougher here. But the rewards are also greater. They got a great big cushy safety net. In fact, the safety net is so comfortable that some people prefer the safety net than to getting off their ass and actually working. There's that too. And then the stuff that we make, we want to keep. We don't want to pay taxes. We want to find ways out of paying taxes, creatively reinvesting, and then reinvesting. As Ralph Cramden used to say, 33% still goes to the stockholders. Right, Norton? He and I have always agreed about that. All right, going forward, the Epstein stuff. Folks, it underline an exclamation point, hoax, Hoax. I went through a lawsuit over the weekend that this is probably the most prominent lawsuit filed by the so-called Epstein survivors. The Epstein survivors. You'd be surprised how old these Epstein survivors are. Guess how old they are. I found one who's 30, one who's 25. Here, I got them all right here. What a scam. 30 years old, 26 years old, 20 years old, 19 years old, 21 years old, 23 years old. I got two 17-year-olds. 217. Now, 17 is gross, right? 17. Oh, my God, that's way too young. Except in New York State. And that's where they say the alleged abuse happened. By the way, anybody can be sexually abused. I've heard of old ladies getting raped. It's horrific. All right? It's age. It's independent of the age. But these women say they showed up as masseuses and they were turned off that the client expected something more than just a back massage. Now, I don't know how many, I mean, come on, right? You're being hired. You have no experience as a masseuse or physical therapist, but they hire you anyway. Do you think something else? Well, he promised me a modeling contract. Half of these women say, oh, I just kept doing it. I just kept involved because he said I could be a model someday. Well, go to Barbizon school and work for it. Can you imagine a guy? Could you imagine a guy who witnesses a crime or is a victim of a crime who just says, well, I'm going to go along with this because my boss said he's going to get me a modeling contract someday. Or my boss said he can get me into a movie someday. So I'm just going to go along with this crime that may harm boys and men or women and girls. I think we need to expect more from human beings, even at the age of 17. Age of consent in New York is 17. Anything below 17, there's no such thing as consent. You're too young to consent. So this was all a great big makeup job to to get Trump. Over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal received an award from the White House Correspondents Association. They had 10 reporters on that stage receiving an award for Best Enterprising Journalism because they wrote a story that Donald Trump signed his name to a birthday card for Jeffrey Epstein in 1994. All right, which is 14 years before he got arrested for a sex offense. Hey, there's a guy in my high school, actually. I wasn't friends with him, but I knew him, right? Did I ever sit with him at the cafeteria? Maybe. He got busted for sex kitty stuff. He did. Years after I last saw him, and it's been 30 years since I last saw him. He's walking around as a sex offender. He's got he registered and all that stuff. Is that I had a meal with the guy in 1986 in the cafeteria, I think. Were we all involved in it? Look, just remember this, the Epstein stuff. I'm not apologizing for Epstein. He was a creep. He was getting underage stuff, from 17 when that was illegal. And he was punished. Sex offender. Ask anybody who's a sex offender. Not that we have access to those people, generally speaking, but they got to register. It's like the Scarlet Letter, and they probably deserve it. But there's no evidence whatsoever that, the titans of industry and they were all being blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein, and somehow Jeffrey Epstein was calling the shots on foreign policy and Israel relations and the Mossad. There's nothing there. All these documents, all the Epstein files, all of it. He was a creep who did creepy things between 2002 and 2006. And it's pretty much end of story. Everything that has happened since is a great big fat money grab. When there's money to be made, everything just goes out the window. Everything goes to hell. All right, it's a big scam. A guy, Michael Tracy, calls it the Jeffrey Epstein industry. And I got the proof. We'll be right back. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?